Hello everybody, today we're going to take a look at while loops in Python. So while loops allow us to execute some code for as long as a condition is true. Let me give you a really easy example, and using the example we're going to try and dig in to how these while loops work. So we're going to say while the variable I is smaller than or equal to 10, we want to execute that comes after the colon, which is going to be a simple print of the variable I, and we are going to increment I by 1. So we're going to say I equals I plus 1. Alright, so before we go ahead and run this code, let us briefly think about how this works. So every while loop begins with the keyword while, and after that comes a condition. In this case, the condition simply asks whether the variable I is smaller than or equal to 10. And if this condition returns true, then the code after the colon is going to be executed. So over here, on the first iteration, we have an I equals 1 going into the while loop. Once it goes into the while loop, the condition is going to state that that it is true because 1 is indeed smaller than or equal to 10. And then it will print out the I, and after it's printed the I, it's going to increment the I by 1. Yeah? So it's going to increment the I by 1 and pass it back into the while loop for another iteration. So if we pass 1 into this increment over here, it's going to assign the value 2 to the I. And then on the next iteration, it will still be a true condition because 2 is still smaller than or equal to 10, and it will go on and on until the value of 10 is reached. So let's go ahead and execute the code. Now you'll see over here in the console it has printed out 1 to 10. And that's not surprising because that's exactly what we asked it to do here. So you'll see, on the last iteration, when 1 was indeed equal to 10, it printed out the number 10 and incremented again. And when the value of I turned to 11, the condition over here, it returned the value false. And that's why the while loop stopped. Now, while loops are quite cool because we can also nest other statements within a while loop, for example, an if statement. So let's go ahead and try and nest an if statement within this while loop. We can, for example, say that if the I is equal to 10, we want to print finished. We want to print finished. And just so that the console output isn't too long, we're going to just decrease that to 4 loops, let's say. And then we're going to say, okay, as soon as it is 4, it is going to print out that it is finished. So on the last iteration, we want to just print out the word finished. Let's go ahead and run that, and you'll see that we have successfully nested an if statement within this while loop, because what we've gone ahead and what we can see in the console output is that it's printed out 1 to 4, and on the final iteration, which was the 4th one over here, it has gone ahead and printed finished. And that is exactly what we expected it to do, because on the 4th iteration, this condition over here, which is in the while loop, returned true, and then the code after the colon in the if function was executed. In general, while loops are really useful when we don't know how often we want to execute some code. Let us dive into a really easy example of where a while loop could be more useful than a for loop. So let's say that we have a username and password input, but let's focus on the username for the moment. You know how when you choose a username, you have to make sure that it is long enough. You have to have a certain number of characters in your username. Now we're going to make a program that allows us to verify if a username is valid and has a certain length of characters, or invalid if the length of characters is below a certain threshold. So let's say while true, we want to execute the code that comes after the colon, which is first we want to assign the variable username to a user input, and then if the length of the username is smaller or equal to 5, we want to print out that the username should be longer. Please choose a longer username. However, if the username is long enough and has more than 5 characters, we want an else statement that prints out that the username is long enough. Valid username. So let's go ahead and run this while loop, and you'll see that this while loop is quite practical, because if we now choose a password which is not long enough, so let's say we choose A, B, C, D, only has 4 characters, and you'll see right here the while loop has made the print statement print out, please choose a longer username. So let's go ahead and print a wrong one again, and again, and again. And you'll see each and every time the while loop is continued on asking us to choose a longer username. Now let us choose a valid username by choosing one that is longer than 5 characters. Let's say we have just some random password like my password for Facebook. This is a very long password, and now it says it's a valid username. So you see that particularly when we don't know how often we want to execute this code, it becomes very useful. Because if you think about the username program we just wrote, we don't know how often a user will input the wrong number of or a username which is not long enough. We just don't know that. So the while loop is going to continue asking until the username is valid. However, the program at the moment always keeps on running regardless if we choose a username which is long enough or not. So you'll see it'll just keep on running regardless of whether it's a valid username or not. So one way we could end the program if a valid username is taken, we can write the keyword break. So now what happens is that the while loop will continue running until a valid username, which is longer than 5 characters, is chosen. So let's go ahead and do that. We can go ahead and give in some random invalid usernames first to see that it's still asks us for a longer username. So there's one wrong username, there's another wrong username, and another. But now, as soon as we take a username which is long enough and has at least it has at least 6 characters, something like max1234, that has 4, 5, 7 characters, that's it. And now it says valid username, and it ends the program. Yeah, so there you go. This was our small introduction into while loops. And yeah, if it helped you out, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see each other in the next video.